Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mentor's Corner. Today, I have my good friend Dan McConkey joining us to talk about honesty.
Hello.
Dan was my support person during one of very difficult project that I was working on. And there was lots of moving parts. There were different people involved. People were going around in circles. And one of the things that impressed me about Dan is that he always cut through the chase and went to the heart of the issue. And whereas everybody else tried to dance around the issues. And because of this trait of Dan, it allowed us to address the issues directly, quickly, and implement solutions much more quickly than normal. It allowed our piece of the project to move forward quicker. So I like working with Dan because he's forthright and I always know where I stand with him. So welcome, Dan, to
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So maybe let's go straight into the discussion.
Sure,
Honesty.
since you set it up that way.
Yes, we did. So then, honesty. We want to talk about honesty, and there are different ways we're tempted not to be totally honest with different situations at work. We're not tempted to be totally honest. The things that I can think of is like when there's an issue, you're hesitant about bringing it up, or you want to delay a status update because you're not 100% sure of, like, for someone hasn't confirmed yet or anything, but you know you're gonna hit the issues, right? So can you think of other instances where people are tempted to be less than truthful or obfuscate the truth?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start by saying probably every single day I in my career am tempted to be less honest, less forthright, less truthful. That said, I learned very early in my career that your personal brand matters.
Yes.
You can spend years earning a good reputation that you can lose in a day. So to me, it's incredibly critical that I am consistent, that I present that brand of me being someone who, when I say something, you can rely on it.
Yes.
And anyone who learns an example of where I didn't do that wrecks that entire reputation, and then that can spread out from under you. So I am tempted to be dishonest, let's say, anytime when bad news arises. Let's be honest.
Yes.
This is a professional working environment with, usually hundreds of team members all doing different things, and not everything works out the way that it should. So there's always bad news that you are nervous to give.
Yes.
That said, I think we should talk about how you can turn that into an opportunity, how you can deal with it responsibly. I don't think there's a boss alive that expects that everything's always going to be perfect. I mean, if they do,
that's true.
Then they're completely jaded and you shouldn't work for that person anyway. Anyone who is in a position of leadership has also been in the position of doing it at some point in time. And so they all generally have been parts of projects and know why things go wrong and some of the dumb reasons that they do. So yeah, you might be tempted to hide from your supervisor when things are bad, or hide from the general public. They tell a PM or something like that, hey, you're late. But you need to bury that instinct, because that's almost never going to serve you. There's an old saying that says bad news never gets better with age.
That's true.
You don't want to let bad news marinate. So the only reason that you might actually want to lie there is if you think you'll never get caught. But you know what? I think we're all smart enough, adult enough to recognize that someone is going to find out, and then it's going to make you look like someone who is now can't be relied on to be forthright, to tell the truth. But the interesting thing is, and I said that we could turn this into an advantage, is that most leaders, at least in the technology industry, I'll say, leaders are in the position they're in because they're pretty good at finding solutions to problems. And so as a leader, if you bring me a problem,
yeah,
I kind of get jazzed up and energized. Hey, this is an opportunity for me to help solve a problem, to add value to the team. Like, that's primarily why I am where I am, so that I can add that level of value. You come to me with a problem, I find a way to solve it. If you hide that problem for me, I can't do my job as a leader. So I, as a leader, want you to tell me when things are going wrong so I can help course correct. If you don't tell me, I'm assuming everything's great in Michelle land.
That's true.
You may very well be going off a cliff, but if you're not telling me you're going off that cliff, I can't tell you to stop and turn left. So
that's a good insight then. I never thought about it.
Yeah, so I, as a leader, want people to bring me problems. I mean, yeah, granted, not too many.
Yeah.
I want people to be operating in a sane and efficient manner. But when things go wrong, which they will, we don't work in perfect projects. No one plans perfectly, but when things go wrong, you know what? That gives me a chance to make the world a little bit better, or not the world, the project a little bit better for everybody. So yeah, I want you to tell me. I said, there's an old saying that bad news gets better with age. I had an old boss once who had a term he called, and forgive me if this sounds a bit insensitive, he called it a dead cat. And his story was, you can tell me that that you ran over the cat, but the cat's still alive. I can do something with that. You can tell me that the cat ran away. I can do something with that. But if you bring me a cat that's dead, I can't do anything with that. So when we would come to him with a problem that it was too late, we let it linger too long. If he was really in a saucy mood, he'd say, "This is a dead cat." So yeah, bring your leader the cat while there's still time for your leader to do something
to fix it. It's going to be worse if you bring them afterwards. And
exactly. A bit of a macabre analogy, but it really sat with me when my leader used to say that. So it's something I picked up years and years ago and have always thought of.
Dead cat. But it's a good thing you pointed out, because we do have our technological, we do have our skills that we bring to the table, but really the currency in the workplace, in my mind, is the trust that we have for each other, right, in the team. And
yeah, well, I mean, so being a good employee and being a good human being are the same thing. I mean, yes, it's possible to be a good employee and be a bad human being in a certain let's say sales position. Maybe that makes sense. But I mean, if you're a good human being, chances are you're 90% of the way towards being a good employee. So yeah, common human interactions that we all rely on in the real world are equally applicable to the work.
To the workplace, right?
Yeah. So I don't want you to lie to me in life. I don't want you to lie to me in the workforce. It's the exact same thing.
That is true. And then if I catch you in a lie, it breaks down that trust between us, and that teamwork starts breaking down when you stop trusting each other.
And people talk in the office. Let's be real honest. Gossip and office politics are a very real thing. So if you break a trust with someone, that someone's going to tell everyone else. It will be known. And you know what? When you're evaluated for the next promotion, I guarantee you your boss's boss, who was in a coffee room with somebody who they go way back, is going to have it in the back of their mind. You know what? I don't want Dan in that position of leadership because I heard he's not trustworthy.
And that's
that'll bite you in the ass.
They'll bite you in the ass. That's hard.
Yeah. Now, where I think you were going with this is, when might you want to hold back?
Yes, the opposite side of the coin.
So bad news never gets better with age, but it also doesn't go over well in public settings. So
that's true.
You need to know how to
To
communicate
deliver.
the bad news. So if you're about to go into let's say a budget toll gating process, and you know that your boss's boss is going to ask you a question about something, you want to make sure that you told your boss that's something before you go into that meeting.
You don't get him by surprise, right?
Exactly.
You don't want to catch him at
You don't want to suddenly announce to, kingdom and country that, the project's going to be 6 months later and $3 million more expensive. You want to tell people, let's start with your boss in a private setting, so that your boss can go tell her boss that happened, so that does not come out in a public setting, so that your boss's boss already knows that the project's going to be 6 months late and $3 million over budget, and won't ask in that very public place where you surprise everybody and essentially put a dagger in your boss's back.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that you tell your bad news in a place where it can be dealt with appropriately.
That's true.
Not cause a scandal.
And for me, in my mind, it's not just your boss. Like, I have this coworker. What she does is she craps at everybody during the scrum meeting, and like, this is the wrong forum because these are not the people who will be addressing the issue. Like, when you address an issue, it's either the project manager or the controller or the right connection that has to be.
Something I aspire to, and frankly don't often match it, or don't often meet that, is I like to say good things in public and bad things in private. So I don't always, because sometimes emotions get the better of us, and sometimes the team needs to understand. But generally speaking, if I've got something I want to say about someone specifically, I'm going to say it to them in private.
Personal.
Yeah, personally, exactly.
And I think I like when you said also it's about how you say it. Right? There's a way of saying it that you're just whining and you're not really looking for solutions. You're just like crapping on people. And there's a way you're saying it where you're actually open to ideas. You're open to like, okay, give me a new direction. So it's also your attitude in terms of when you're bringing it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right? I mean, and that's kind of a completely different topic, but
yes.
That's going to depend on your relationship to the person you're talking to, how you would want to approach it. If it's a subordinate, if it's a peer, if it's a leader. Sometimes you need your leaders to behave differently. Let's be really honest. And if you're dealing with a good leader, they're going to welcome that. I remember distinctly, this was, oh man, that was 7 years ago. I went to my boss's office, closed the door, and said, "Are you open for feedback?" And he said, "Not today." Okay. So about a week later, I went into his office and I said, "Hey, you remember when I asked you if you're open for feedback? How do you feel about that now?" And he said, "You know what? Yeah, let's have that discussion." And I brought something up that I thought needed to change, which I kind of had a good enough relationship with him at the time where I felt that it wasn't going to blow up in my face. You need to read that yourself.
Yes. Yes.
But I thought that I had a good enough relationship where I couldn't damage it through this conversation, and basically told him how a way that he was behaving, I guess is the right term, was negatively impacting my team. And he took it to heart. I don't know if it made all the change that I wanted it to make, but it didn't have a negative impact. And I thought that it really did build that relationship between he and I better, because he knew that I could have an adult conversation with him. Having a hard conversation, no one wants to have that. No one on either side of the table wants to have the hard conversation, but those are the conversations we have to have as working interactive adults. It's like with your partner in life, you fight. It happens. You gotta fight. Any couple that doesn't fight is waiting for the big one to happen. you got to be able to have these back and forth conversations.
These difficult conversations.
Yes.
Right? And bring
in
it up.
an adult professional manner. There's a book out there called Crucial Conversations, I think it's called. Very, very good book to understand how to bring up those types of things. And any of these times when you're nervous about telling your leader or a project manager or someone the truth, that's a crucial conversation, and it matters how you prepare for those conversations.
It does.
Sticking to facts. Taking emotions out of it, saying, making sure that you couch things into, this is how that makes me feel, rather than you're being a jackass.
Yes.
Those kinds of things.
It's about what I'm observing, instead of accusing someone, no name calling, all of those things, right?
So all of that, you started with honesty, and I'm sorry, I kind of went around.
Oh, no. And the good thing about that, for me, in my experience, is that the light at the end of the tunnel, there's a rainbow at the end of the rain. Like when we have those crucial conversations, I've found the people I've had that after those conversations, our relationship just gotten better. It's always like improved our relationships after it, because now we understand each other much better. Right?
Yeah, and if it doesn't, then you probably approached it wrong and owe it to you and the other person to think about why it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, at least in terms of that bridge building, and try to correct that. Yeah. So
one last question then, where do you find the courage to just face it? I know you've talked about one instance early in your career. Is that anything else that gives you the courage to be honest in the workplace and bring that bad news?
So I think I touched on this earlier, but to me, it's not courage, it's cowardice, because I know it's going to get worse if I let it wait. So I don't want to face the ultimate consequence. But no, it's yeah. I had conversations with a boss, let's say, where I've been afraid. Yes, of course. And 99 times out of 100, that's all in my head. Anyone who has been around the block long enough to be in a leadership position for a long time has probably gotten to the point where they are emotionally intelligent enough not to make that, not to punish you for doing the right thing. Now, yes, there are inexperienced leaders who should never have been put in that position. Occasionally, that's just the hand you were dealt. But the vast majority of leaders I've worked with are rational people that were in my shoes once upon a time, and know that it's hard for this person to tell you an uncomfortable truth, and most leaders I've worked with know to make it about the problem, not the person communicating the problem. So if you go into it with that mindset, that I'm talking to a rational person who's made mistakes in their life and will likely be sympathetic, as long as I'm doing it in the right way, that's going to be a good conversation. There's no reason to be afraid. Now, if I'm doing it the wrong way, then yeah, I probably ought to be afraid. So, don't go to my boss's office and say, we would have been on time had you not ordered us to do this, whatever. That's probably not the right way to go about it. So as long as you think about, what are the positive outcomes that can come from this conversation, which is what every conversation really should be at work.
It should be.
Then you've got no reason to be afraid. So there's no need for courage.
It does make sense. It reminds me of an incident early in my career where I was working on the servers and I deleted all of the mail. I was working on the mail server and I deleted everybody's emails in the company. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And like, the longer I wait, there's nothing I can do. I don't know how to restore it. So I went to my boss and he was just like, okay, we have a backup from yesterday. We're just going to lose the emails from today, but we have to send everybody an email. But that was for me like scary. just
But
to
you know what?
admit.
We've all done it, including when you had that conversation with your boss. I guarantee you that person had done it before
Yes,
themselves.
my first instinct was to run away, like walk out the door and just like not show my face in that company ever again. But like it took some like talking to myself to just like admit to it, and I'm glad I did, because the earlier we did it, the longer I waited, the more it would have been worse. So
Yeah, I accidentally deleted a prod database once.
okay, I'm not the only one. Okay. So Dan, we're out of time. Thank you very much for your
Thank you for having me.
insights and your advice. We hope to have you here again in sometime in the future. Let's talk about
I'd
another
love to do
topic,
that.
and
And I
let's
love what you're doing, Michelle. Thank you very much for this.
thank you.